Oh, dear God.
Well, of course, now that everyone has smartphones, you can just check online.
Superman, the Grant Morrison wrote was
Welcome to At the Table with Destiny Comics.
Howdy, my name's Wayne Abraham. I am one of the regular writers for 8-Bit Pulp, and I am also one of the editors of 8-Bit Pulp.
My name is Brandon Noel, co-founder of the company, writer, artist.
I'm Maylene Noel. See, I said it right.
That's right, we're married.
I said Macias last time, and Brandon got mad. Maylene Noel, I am one of the writers for 8-Bit Pulp, one of the editors, of which there are 3, and I am also the main photographer on 8-Bit Pulp.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Bonnie Abraham, and I am a writer and the 3rd editor there. So there we go.
Woo! 3 for 3.
Awesome.
So this week we're talking zombies.
Too much.
I still haven't seen that. I want to see that so bad.
I have it in my bag of watch.
Oh,
we gotta watch it later.
Yeah.
Too much. Excuse me ahead of time. I have a cough. Sorry.
Yeah.
So Wayne, since you know more about pulp history than a lot of us here, would you care to give our listeners a brief history of pulps?
Pulps actually began in the late 1800s.
Wow, not as brief as I thought it would be.
No. And they continued through where the last official pulp finally died out in the mid-60s or thereabouts. Their real heyday was in the 20s and 30s, 40s, that era. When pulps originally started out, they were multi-genre as far as the stories. They contained a variety of stories in them. As they gained in popularity, the pulps began to separate by genres and by subgenres, where one of the main genres was romantic pulps, but there was a pulp out there called gingers, which was specifically romantic stories about redheads. That's how subdivided it became in the various genres. So with 8-Bit Pulp, what we're trying to do is go back to the early pulps so that we're presenting a variety of genres to the readers. With the exception of our upcoming issue 4.
Yes, which actually will be the awesome zombie issue. Woo!
Yeah, end of the year. It's kind of more of a celebration for us than anything. Just the fact that we managed to keep it going for a year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It just also happens to coincide coincidentally with October.
Yeah. Well, the first one came out on Halloween.
Yes, true.
Which was awesome.
Yeah. So, and if I had thought further ahead with the first one, I probably would have said, let's keep it horror-based, or, knowing that was coming out on Halloween.
Well, I think with the first one, we were just trying to,
get it started.
Understand it.
Yeah, we were trying to get it done.
First issue, do we have enough stories?
Yeah.
Like you got a story, good.
Bring it over here.
You wrote
Here's
it
what
12
genre.
years ago,
It's a
but it's never been published. That's fine. Bring it on.
Yeah.
So, especially I probably would have been less comfortable doing a horror themed the
Story
first time,
right out of the bat.
just
Yeah,
because
right out of the bat,
I wanted to kind of understand it better and feel how it's going to be like,
and then there would have been people would have wanted you did the hard-boiled story. People would have wanted that in issue 1. Because that's what pulp is known for, is the hard-boiled.
Yeah,
the very
stuff.
Noir stuff.
Even though, when I think pulp, I think more like Lovecraft, Robert E. Howard,
Even the Bronte sisters' Wuthering Heights was first serialized in a pulp.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
It wasn't in a pulp magazine, but Sherlock Holmes was serialized in...
The Strand.
The Strand.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, Sherlock Holmes, I can kind of claim it as pulp, but I think they've always, even when it was coming out, they perceived Sherlock Holmes as higher quality than pulp
Yeah.
because they had a really nice illustrator. They had, that was the high end of it.
Sure. God, I love Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock season 3.
Oh, can't wait for season
oh,
Yeah,
so excited.
they announced.
the titles of the episode.
I know, I saw.
I don't remember them all, but
I
like
liked it. I shared it. Woohoo!
3 was like named the final battle of Sherlock or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I thought I had like the word "end" in it. I don't know.
Oh,
I thought it was.
Dang it, no!
And you're like, no, wait, what?
Ah, Reichenbach Falls all over again.
Again, we already did it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I admit I'm a huge Benedict Cumberbatch fan.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
they pushed season 3 back because not only was he doing Star Trek,
Hobbit.
yeah, The Hobbit, and they're both in The Hobbit.
Oh
Yeah, I
yeah,
know. They're
Sherlock
both in The
Holmes
Hobbit.
and,
Yeah, Benedict
Watson.
Cumberbatch does the voice of Smaug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have Watson versus
That was bound to happen
It's
someday.
bound out, yeah.
Like-
Whose will win? Bum, 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 bum.
Spoiler! Just kidding.
Yeah. So let's talk the undead for a moment.
Okay.
Zombies. Let's.
We're going to bring that up again.
Yes, again. I'm really excited. Not only is it the theme for issue 4, but this seems to be very popular in pulp culture. I mean, it's almost acceptable to well, it is now. A couple of years ago, zombies were the far end of the pool as far as the horror spectrum goes.
The thing I found interesting was talking to some friends who are more my age peers, and for our listeners, I'm 58, so not like the other youngsters here in the room. And, they were talking about, the need to be prepared because our nation's going to heck in a handbasket, and so you need to be setting aside food and water and just this preparedness thing. And they're really into that, just being prepared for whatever. And their kids are doing the same thing, but they're preparing for the zombie apocalypse, which, the older ones, are saying, right, that's never going to happen. But if it's getting them into a state of preparedness, fine. Let them believe in the zombie apocalypse, as long as they're being prepared for something that's going to happen.
They
whether
got the
it's
bottles of
zombies or
water.
not,
And,
If the
Exactly.
zombie apocalypse actually happened, I'm heading for Costco. That's where I'm heading. Okay, you got those things that you pull down in front
This
of
just in,
doors.
zombie apocalypse starts in Costco. Maylene Yarbrough Noel, first victim.
I'm just saying, because you got those things that you can pull down. You've got food in bulk, as well as some clothing and that kind of stuff. And you have medication because you got a pharmacy there, so I'm good. And a bathroom.
and tools that can be used as weapons.
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's where I'm heading. You guys come find me in the Temecula Costco. I'm good.
So, starting with Bonnie, I'm
Yep.
going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Favorite zombie story?
Whoa, I have to pick a favorite zombie
Yeah.
story.
One. Only one.
Well, I'll be honest, there's a lot that I haven't, movie-wise and story-wise, that I have not read and I have not seen. I've read a few. I'll be totally honest, I really like Warm Bodies. Read the book, saw the movie first. Glad I did. Don't get me started on movies screwing up books. I'd rather watch the movie first. Liked both
so with
versions
you
of
there.
it. I liked. It was interesting. It was different. Hey, it was better. What they did to zombies was better than what Twilight did to vampires. So,
Woo!
But since none of you have seen Warm Bodies, I'm not going to say anything else.
Nice.
I still don't know how I feel about it. I'll have to watch it first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Which totally watching it after the podcast because
Totally.
I gotta admit, I got interested after I saw the trailer. You showed me the trailer. I think you're the first one to show me the trailer.
I saw the trailer and laughed hysterically and said I have to see this movie because it looks so horribly hilarious. Like, it looks awful. I have seen most of Zombieland. Actually, that was pretty good.
Zombieland was pretty
Okay,
good.
it was pretty good.
I like the whole thing with the Twinkies.
Yeah, that was
That was
great.
pretty funny.
Which Twinkies are coming back. But,
Woo!
what do you mean coming back? They were in Despicable Me.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, I have to say Zombieland was actually pretty good. It was better than I thought it was. Come on, the minions look like Twinkies.
I never noticed that. I never noticed
I never
that.
noticed that either. Oh my gosh.
They're little. No wonder they can't speak well. They've got all that cream in them. They're like,
Every time, you know what? From now on, anytime I watch one of these movies, I'm gonna be thinking Twinkies.
You haven't seen the picture of the Minion cupcakes?
No.
It's the base cupcake, and they cut a Twinkie in half, and,
Stuck it on
they
top
glue
and
two
put-
Smarties on for glasses, and put a drop of frosting in each one, and then do the little hair on
fantastic.
top and the mouth. For the
Oh
individual
my God.
faces.
Absolutely awesome.
I
Yeah.
want one now.
Oh, I know. Okay, but so yeah, Zombieland was good. I've read a few. Okay, like I read Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
Yeah.
I liked it. I really liked Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters a lot
You
better.
almost seem scared to admit that you
Like-
like Pride and
I
Prejudice.
did like Pride and Prejudice
You're
and
like,
Zombies,
I
but
liked it.
there were certain things that I felt were a bigger stretch trying to fit zombies into the Pride and Prejudice story.
Yeah.
Whereas Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters, it totally fit. It made sense. Hey, we have a really good reason why we absolutely despise that particular character. It was awesome. Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, come on. Cauliflower is zombie bait because it looks like a brain.
That
I'm sorry,
I
that's
didn't
stretching
like.
it.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Okay? Whereas in Warm Bodies, you will see, it gives a reason why they like brains, which I actually like. So, won't tell you any more than that.
Well,
Yeah,
I
but-
don't know about Warm Bodies, but
Yeah.
in Return of the Living, not
See, I
Night of the
haven't
Living
seen any
Dead.
of those yet. I need to go see those.
Okay, well, I have most of the Romero films,
All right.
but in the '90s there was a series. They made 4 of them called Return of the Living Dead. It was totally tromping on Romero's copyright, and they're more funny than they're dark comedy more than they are actual horror.
Right.
But the zombies talked, and the brain thing, because they actually said brains, you know.
It all comes from that.
Well, yeah, it comes from that. And what it is like the idea is, it was kind of touched on, but not really. The idea is the zombie is in constant pain unless it is eating a brain. And that's kind of, even though those films are not well liked, they're not particularly well remembered, it's so linked with Romero's
Right.
canon, but it's not. They kind of perceive that as classic zombie.
Well, the thing is, zombie stories have been around for so long, and Brains is only recent. It's only in
Yeah.
the last, 50 years
Does
or whatever.
it give a reason why brains alleviates the pain?
No, it
Like,
doesn't.
say like
See,
the
no.
fluid or something? Or?
No.
See, that's really my personal beef with the current zombie craze, because the whole acceptable popular concept of zombies are the Romero-based zombie apocalypse thing.
Yeah.
And zombies predated that by a number of years. The word zombie had its origin in the with African roots from the Haitian voodoo ceremonies is where the actual term zombie comes from. So that's kind of, if you want to be a stickler, you say, well, that's where zombies come from and anything that predates. But if you look at Asian folklore, you look at European folklore, back the 10th century, 8th century even, they have tales of dead bodies that have reanimated for some reason or another and are plaguing the living for some reason or another.
Yeah.
And that's basically the concept of zombie, although the term is much more modern. They use terms like revenant and other types of names for them in the folklore, but they still fit under the classification of zombie. And if you draw on that, as well as the original voodoo zombie concept and everything, it's such a much broader category than the zombie apocalypse thing that's going on
Yeah,
nowadays.
in the Old Testament, in Ezekiel, the Valley of the Bones.
I know.
Yeah.
Excellent. Exactly.
At one point, an entire army was created from dead bones.
Mm-hmm.
Which, admit it, if you saw an army of dead bones coming at you, that would freak anybody out.
Right.
Or your first thought would be Ray Harryhausen?
I know, right?
Yep.
Wow. I didn't know he was that powerful.
He's that good.
So,
Well, skeletons were
I
his
woke up in a
specialty.
Harryhausen
Yeah.
movie this morning.
I know. When I woke up this morning, I knew I was going to war. I just didn't know it looks so much like a Harryhausen film.
But no, you're right. The zombies are so much broader than what the current populace is focusing on.
Exactly, and I think that's one reason I personally am burnt out on the current popular concept
Well,
of
if you
zombies
think-
myself.
If you think about it, that happens with a lot of myths that go back, myths and legends that go back so many centuries. Like vampires. Like, they start to focus on one particular thing that may or may not have been always with that myth. You know, like, a lot of our ideas of zombies today come from the book Dracula.
Vampires.
Vampires, sorry, I meant vampires.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
We're going back and forth, but But like the idea of a lot of the vampire myths go back to Dracula, and so he actually created a lot of things that weren't
Part of the
part of the
myth
lore
before,
until he wrote that book.
Well, vampires before Dracula were the folklore, the folk myth. They were mostly ghosts who drank blood, and that's why there was so many different ways to kill a vampire, because it was dependent on how the actual person died. They were more ghosts. Sometimes you'd have to decapitate the vampire. Sometimes you'd have to quarter the vampire, or whatever. They were ghosts who drank blood.
Right.
And then
And then eventually became like, oh, you have to stab him through the heart, or
and I like that. When I get around to writing some more vampire stories, I'm gonna play with that.
Yeah.
It's not just through the heart. Maybe you got to decapitate it and set the body on fire.
Which, don't get me wrong, a lot of the Dracula, like the myths that come from Dracula, I like. I like the, allergy to the sun or whatever they call it. But, I mean, I would like to, like you said, experiment more with some of the original myths of vampirism. And not that, I'm against any current beliefs of vampires, just,
well, yeah.
Yeah. No,
Which is one of the few reasons I could respect the Twilight thing for coming up with her own stuff.
It's new.
It's her own new thing.
I've said it before. I might not necessarily agree with it as the most strongest method.
No, I agree with you.
But it is a valid
totally.
interpretation.
She came up with her own concept, and it worked. And she made a lot of money off of it, so you can't, something.
I've said this before. My only real problem with Twilight is the writing.
Oh, I agree. You started.
Okay, moving on.
she would not have made it into 8-bit pulp,
No.
especially book 1.
We would have sent her away. Sorry.
With
Now,
beating from a thesaurus.
having said what I said about the zombie apocalypse and all of that, originally I was not going to write a zombie story for issue 4 because I was so tired of, the zombie apocalypse thing and its current popularity. It's like, yeah, I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to sit this issue out. And then I got a story concept to play with, and
really cool concept. By
really enjoyed it. It hasn't been gelling, and we have this August
Deadline?
22nd deadline coming up, and so this whole story, it involves British military at the Indian-Pakistani border, and I know nothing about British military or the Indian-Pakistani border, which means it entails a lot of research on my part, and it just hasn't been flowing. And then yesterday about 4 a.m., my muse whaps me up the side of the head with the oversized anime mallet, and
It's on his face.
and I grab my my composition book and a book light, and I start scribbling until the battery dies on my book light, and I forgot to take the book with me to Starbucks yesterday when I went, and so when I came home, I wrote some more till I got sleepy, and wrote some more this morning. While the story is a zombie story, and when you get right down to it, it's a zombie apocalypse story.
Mm-hmm.
As much as saying I don't like the zombie, if I'm fed up with it, I realize the story that I'm writing is actually a zombie apocalypse story. So there you go.
Maylene, favorite zombie story?
You know, I said it last time. I still gotta go with it. On the last podcast, I gotta go with the original Night of the Living Dead.
Night of the Living Dead.
And like I said, I think it still holds up as a good zombie film. And, you know, it's one of those things where some of the things, when I first saw it, I didn't see it coming. I was like, whoa!
No,
Whoa!
I love introducing that film to people who haven't seen it, because a friend of mine introduced it to me.
Yeah.
And there are parts of it, if you don't know, it's that coming.
So,
So
yeah.
we'll watch that.
I'm not going to say the ending, but I will tell anybody who has seen it, the ending, I admit, took me by surprise. I was like, what? Can they do that? Like, it was one of those reactions, like, oh my gosh, what? You know, that was my
So
reaction.
if I don't do that when we finally get around to me seeing it, are you going to be mad at me?
No, it was just my reaction. I was like, whoa.
I had a similar reaction, and Romero, like, what's weird is, I love Romero, I'm a huge fan. The hero, the only real hero in the piece, is a black guy. And it's a 1950s film, and at one point he even slaps a white woman. And
Because she's getting hysterical.
she's freaking out. He just slaps her like, listen! You
Focus!
know, this is what we're going to do. And it brought up like a much larger topic of racism. And Romero, there's an interview, I think even on the DVD I have, where Romero just says, I wasn't trying to talk about racism. He was just the best actor I knew. You know, everyone automatically looked at his film thinking maybe he's making a bigger statement about Vietnam, or maybe he's making a statement about racism. And he was just telling a horror story.
Yeah.
Which I always thought would be kind of funny, because like, I used to sit in my English classes, and my teachers would be like, oh, the poet is saying this. I'm like, what if you were just saying what he was saying? What if it wasn't a metaphor for anything? Like, like, I always thought about that. Like, what if it's not a metaphor
What if I
for...
go back and ask him, now, did you mean all these, you know,
metaphors?
existential questions, blah, blah, and he's like, no, I just meant the sky was blue.
I don't remember the title or even the author at this point. I just remember it was in a delightful sci-fi anthology that I was reading that was dealing with time travel, and this university, like, it set up this field that they could kind of focus on different time periods, and it was focusing on this one event that they come in and they were looking at it, and they brought some of the other college professors in and whatnot, and so they're saying you could bring actual people, you know, and kind of the punchline to the whole story was this English professor said, wow, said, I would love to have Shakespeare in one of my classes, and one of the professors on the project said, you failed him.
Nice. Yeah, like, I always just kind of wondered that, like, you know, it's like, if I went back and talked to a famous, like, poet and say, so did you really mean this as a metaphor for your spirit? No, I just was talking about how much I like oatmeal. You know, like, I said, I like oatmeal. I can't be any plainer than that, can I? You know?
There are two zombie stories I really like, as far as my favorites. Shaun of the Dead is one of my absolute favorite zombie films. It holds up. It is hilarious. It is a dark comedy, and it is in the vein of the Romero zombie. Not to say that the Zack Snyder running zombie isn't valid. I just don't agree with it. I think if you have the beast, the monster, the antagonist chasing the hero, you've removed the suspense of the zombie genre.
Mm-hmm.
The zombie is kind of in the same line as the mummy.
Right.
You know, although when they revamped the mummy, I like that he kept.
Mummy was cool.
I like the fact that he kept the supernatural powers
Mm-hmm.
versus going back to the black and white mummy where it's just a zombie.
Yeah. With bandits.
Essentially,
Yeah. The other film I really enjoyed. It's a dark comedy in the same kind of vein, but it's not well known. I Sell the Dead. It is a zombie period piece. It takes place like during the 15th century, and it's about a guy who got into the business of selling corpses, digging up corpses and selling them to doctors like cadavers and stuff, which was a very big practice at the time.
Right.
And then midway through, he finds out, oh, there are these special corpses, you know, ghouls, goblins, and things of that nature, that if I go out and seek them, these doctors pay me 10 times as much.
Right.
And it's literally because the way the film's set up is he is on his deathbed. He is set to be executed in the morning, the main character.
Mm-hmm.
And it is him confessing his sins to this priest. And it's going back and telling him from the time he was a boy, how he got into the thing, and him trying to hunt and dig up these zombies. And it's dark, but it's pretty fun.
Why have I never seen this film? This sounds so interesting, actually.
It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
It gets weirder and weirder because at one point he ends up digging up like a alien, like literally like a little alien body. And
wow, this is just jam packed with supernatural stuff.
it
isn't
is. It is weird. And Ron Perlman plays.
Oh, Ron Perlman.
Ron Perlman, Hellboy. He plays the priest who the guy is confessing to. So there's a lot of Ron Perlman.
I don't know why. I was expecting you to say, like, he's the alien they digged up.
No.
Because he's just, like, weird enough to do that part. You know?
It's worth a watch. It's I like the idea of a period zombie piece.
I just had this image of him digging up bodies and Ron Perlman!
Ron Perlman.
I don't know why that was in my head. He's like digging up a grave. Oh my god, it's Ron Perlman! And then, like this big epic fight breaks out.
So, Wayne, your favorite zombie tale? It doesn't have to be film. Literature.
If you're going film, White Zombie is the classic.
Mm.
You know, black and white. You know,
Silent, right? Is it silent?
No.
It's been
No,
a
it's a
long
black
time
and white
since I've
talkie.
seen. Okay.
Yeah. And that's a good one. But as far as my favorite story, I picked up an anthology, Tales of the Living Dead or something like that. It's published by Baen Books, Baen. It's the last name of the publisher.
Mm.
It's not Baen like Bane. That was a Baen, but
Yeah.
other way. Anyways,
No one liked me before I put on the mask.
That's what I was thinking.
so I would think that too, but I haven't seen that movie yet. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So anyway, in this collection of zombie tales by different authors was this one that I really, really enjoyed. I enjoyed it so much that I read it to Bonnie. And basically it's this, you're not, he's an investigator. You don't really know, it kind of implies he's possibly a government investigator. It's after the zombie apocalypse has happened. It was
That's right. Oh my goodness, that was a good
virus
story.
that came over. They called it the African rabies. It originated in Africa, and the people that caught it, became zombies. But he's there meeting with this head of this Amish family group, And he's got the recorder on the table, and he's like, okay, I'm ready to start the interview. And the guy just sits there looking at him. And then he realizes, oh, I'm dealing with an Amish fellow, and he takes the electronics away and pulls out the notepad and pencil. And he's asking them questions, and asking him questions about what happened, and he said,
Hey folks, sorry to interrupt this podcast here, but I'm sitting here with my wife, Maylene Macias, the author of Gabriel and the Chicago Devil.
Yep, that's me. My novel, which has recently been published, features great characters, a hard-boiled detective, and a horrible person who's doing horrible things, and a detective who's willing to do anything possible to track him down.
And you can get your copy at destinycomics.wix.com/comics.
We go into town, we see the television and news broadcasts. We weren't ignorant of what was happening. But he says this isn't an act of God or judgment on the planet like some of you have speculated. It's you English messing with, with nature and science, that you brought this on yourselves type thing. But he's talking about the first encounter they had. He'd got up early to go out and milk the animals, and had come through the gate of the garden next to him and heard some noise, and lifts his lantern, and it's his Mennonite neighbor that has lived down the road from him for years. They've been guests in each other's homes and stuff like this, and he backs out and closes the door, so they can't get into the main house part, and goes back in and joins his wife for morning prayer and waits for the sunrise. And when they come out, there is a group of a dozen or so zombies in the field, and he sees there's a hole in the fence, and that's where they're coming through. But they're all people that they've known for years, families, and and some of their children and whatnot. And the zombies get into the barn and start attacking the animals. Well, he and his sons go out and patch up the hole in the barn, and then they go repair the fence so they won't have any more wandering
Lock up the zombies in the barn.
and you basically lock up the zombies, and he said, I've seen the films that you have shown on your broadcasts and read your books of how you take the head off of these zombies, take care of it. But he says, you have to understand the first ones we came in contact were people we had known for years. And so they're sitting there. They have fields that they end up with a group of 20 or so living in the compound there that are survivors and neighbors, part of the Amish community. And they, we have fields that need plowing. The zombies have eaten our animals, and one of the guys is thinking about it. And he says, I think this will work. And he's a woodworker, and he designs a harness. I mean,
a plow.
A plow, a yoke, that they're able to put 8 zombies in a row with guys on each end with ropes to keep them in line. And then they have some of the younger kids walk quickly in front of them as bait, like dangling the carrot in front of the mule. And they are actually using the zombies to plow their fields and things, and then they use the cattle chutes and stuff to lure them through the cattle chutes into the barn, and then climb up a ladder and out the loft.
So zombies are out and about. When other people go by and they see zombies over the fence, they're not going to go over the fence.
But they lock them up at night so none of their group get randomly hurt by it. And so they are using the zombies in lieu of the animals and stuff, and making sure there's enough food for the winter and that type of thing. And this, if people come by and are in need of some food or something, they have food to share with them to send them on their way. And
it's a great story.
It's a great story. It's a great story.
I just have the image of the kids running in front of the zombies. Come on, kids, time to play dodge zombie.
And he said, it's no more dangerous, than having the kids going out and and putting the horses and stuff, and you know, one gets injured, trampled now and again, you know.
Yeah.
But it was this whole zombie apocalypse from the Amish perspective and how they just adapted to it. And it was like the best zombie story I have ever read.
It
To
was
be
fantastic.
perfectly
It's
honest.
true. He read it to me. I loved it. Don't tell anymore. You've already told a lot of the good stuff, but you know, it's very, very worth a read.
Dog
for sure.
zombie.
I will find the name of it and the author, and you can post it
Like-
on the website or something.
Yeah,
if
yeah,
some of the listeners are interested in looking at
Straight
it.
line, kids, straight line. Don't you dare serpentine.
I don't normally do notes with the podcast because it's just too much work.
Right.
But I'll probably put that link in the notes.
It's worth it.
So
it's
people
worth
can
a
find
read.
it,
It's a
yeah.
nice short story.
And it was a freebie book from Bain, so
Right.
you can go download it as part of their free ebook collection.
Don't you dare let the zombies get you, because then it's going to be your job pulling it.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the one pulling it, do you? Don't
That's
let them
one
get
thing
you.
that Bain Books does that I like. They're primarily sci-fi and fantasy, and when they have authors who have a series, they don't demand, but they encourage them to put book one up as a free ebook, and they have it available in like 4 or 5 different formats, Kindle format being one of them. And when I checked it a year or so back, they had like 200 books, and I went through and read the descriptions, and I downloaded like 98 of them. They were all freebies.
That's actually brings up I might check on the Kindle, maybe making Volume 1 free for like a week or something. See if that's
Get
something
some
we
more.
can do. Because I would like to do stuff like that, but there's actually price limits
Right.
and
Right.
stuff on
Yeah,
that
it's like
end.
it's weird. It's like a minimum price. that
Because
you-
I honestly originally for the Kindle I was down for setting the pulps for 10 cents.
Right.
Let's do a 10-cent book.
Like they were originally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but then it's like, oh no, you have to have this much and sell,
Yeah.
limited this much or whatever.
Yeah. So okay, now we're talking pulp. Well, we've been kind of talking pulp. This is the first time for a podcast that I've had all 3 editors here. Yeah. Let's talk pulp and editing pulp.
Well, do you have an hour?
Yeah, do you have an hour?
Well, editing is editing.
Whether it's pulp or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those jobs where it's not the most fun job to have, but you feel accomplished when you do it.
Yeah, when you're one of those people who gets out the pen or pencil that's handy and corrects a problem you see in your own printed book you purchased from the store.
Guilty.
Yeah, me too. That's the only problem with the Kindle, by the way. I can't correct it.
Not even for your own knowledge.
I'm like, it's misprinted. There's something wrong.
I will say that I'm really glad to have 2 more editors because the first one was all me, and I know there was a lot of stuff I missed. So I was like, dang it, after it got published and everything. I'm like, I
As
thought
well
I
as some
saw-
stuff you never saw, but we
Yeah.
won't go there.
Yeah.
Well, that's the nice thing, too, because even though...
Don't make me cry, Wayne.
Even
Don't
though
make me
all of
cry.
us have taken turns, and we're not always, I'm not always the last one to edit a story. Mayleen's not always the last one to edit a story. Wayne's not always the last one to edit a story, and yet it never fails. There's always one thing that needs to be fixed by the last editor, or generally
Yeah.
speaking. It may just be as simple as that should be a comma, not a period, but there's always something that the third person still catches, even after going through 2 editors, because that's the thing. Everything that goes in the pulp goes through all 3 of us.
Yeah.
Basically, we kind of divvy it up. You take these stories, I'll take these stories, and then
Pass it along with
we
that.
will edit the story, and to the file name for the story, we will add our initial and pass it on to the next person. And when they edit, they will add their initial, pass it on to the third person. So when it has all 3 initials on it, that's when I pass it to Brandon as the publisher and said, this has been edited by all of us. It's ready for you to format into publication.
We usually figure by the time the third ones look through it, if there is still mistakes, it's not going to be like a big flopping mistake.
Yeah.
Like
No.
it might be something small, like a comma or
Yeah.
semicolon, or maybe a very small misspelled word that isn't really misspelled, but it's just not the right version of that word.
Right. There are a few of those there.
Yeah. So, which is always kind of nice because it's like if it went through 3 editors, it might be noticed by someone else, but chances are not.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and, with my dyslexia, the editing chores, or it should never really fall on me to edit.
We agree.
Yeah, we agree.
We love
yeah.
you, and we all agree on that.
I love you dearly, and I wouldn't trade you for anything, but there's a reason why I edit it first before Wayne and Bonnie, because we want to keep
Brandon's
it as
story.
Yeah, Brandon's anyway.
Well, you share with her your idea and concept, so she knows what you're trying to do with the story.
I like
Yeah.
Wayne and Bonnie. I don't want them to run away.
Well, there was years ago at a Comic-Con, there was a panel I attended. One of the best panels I ever attended. It was a series of editors. And one of them said he thought of himself as more of an architect, that he could tell when something was broken within the story, like in the structure. Like,
Yeah.
he goes, I might not be able to fix it, but I can tell you that that's broken.
Here, you need to fix this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And that's one of the things that, I mean, the easy part of editing is when you're finding punctuation errors or grammatical errors,
Spelling.
and spelling errors, that type of thing. But where it becomes challenging is like when somebody has this big long sentence fragment that's not really a sentence, and it needs to be reworded to make it a sentence.
Yeah.
And you you have to change it around for it to be proper, but so you want, like he says, you want to fix it so that it's correct, but you also don't want to, in the repair, destroy the author's voice, because each
Right.
author has their own voice that comes through their story.
Right. The syntax.
The style of the
Yeah,
way they
yeah.
write.
The style of the way they write, it's their own voice, and sometimes they'll have different voices for different stories. And so, as an editor, you want to correct the errors you find, and sometimes you need to do some repair to the architecture, but you still want to maintain
The integrity.
the integrity
Of
of the
the building?
structure of
Yeah,
the building.
you don't want to take out any those beams that hold everything up, support
Yeah.
walls and stuff like that.
Right, and it's like you want, if the architectural style is Baroque, you don't want to make this correction and throw in Gothic instead, because the architectural is no longer.
Basically, there's a fine line between editing and rewriting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
Let's
some
add
res-
some Roman columns to this Art Deco story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not that you're trying to be a jerk and rewrite and totally change it up, but at the same time, you know that it can't stay the way it is, And it's just one of those things where it's like you want so much to help make it better, but in the process, you don't want to destroy it either.
Yeah. And editing a volume of 8-bit pulp is a challenge. I mean, volume 1 was 180 some odd pages. Volume 2, 130. Volume 3, I think 160 something. These are big, thick books,
Mhm.
and it does take a small army to actually just edit everything.
Right, and and the fact that everything on the cover, and between the covers, has to go through 3 different editors. It takes some time to
Yes.
accomplish that.
Yeah.
That's generally why it's like we have to have the stories turned in 2 months before everything goes up, because it's like we need that, at least like
time.
4 weeks, maybe 5, to edit everything and push it through to get it,
Formatting.
Well,
formatted,
and
so.
we actually, compared to some indie companies, we work kind of like breakneck speed because, like DC and Marvel, they're 5 months ahead. The book they're working on now will go out in 5 months.
Ah.
So like being an indie company and being so small, we give ourselves 3 months from the time the stories come in to the time the book goes out.
Right, which gives the writers about 2 months to write, but and then the rest of the time is left over to the editors, but not totally, because then the formatter has to get his hands on it as well.
And,
So
the artist as well, kind of thing, drawing, even if it's just 2 or 3 images per story, it's still like, okay, that takes time, that takes
Right.
time to do, and so it's like the artist is drawing while we're editing and writing, and it's just a big old crazy process.
It is, and
And everybody still has lives. It's not like this is what
Yes,
we do
yeah.
for a living at this point. No,
It's not like
this
we're-
is an act of love.
Yeah, it's not like we're here 8 hours a day working on
Right.
just the pulp. It's, go to our job or school or whatever it is we're doing,
Yep.
come back, have an hour or two to write or edit or whatever it is we're doing, and then go out and do something with the family or whatever. It's not like we're
Work
here.
on wedding stuff.
Yeah, work on wedding stuff. It's not like we're here most of the day just focusing on writing, editing, or whatever.
yeah, I had a writer tell me, he's like, "You're so lucky, you get to do this all the time." I was like, No, I don't. It's like a good day is when I get to work, and I've said it before. There are times where Maylene has gone to bed, and I've stayed up. Like, instead of cuddling my wife, I'm in the office working for 4 or 5 hours until 4 in the morning.
No joke, I've gotten up at like 2 or 3, and he hasn't come to bed, and I'm just like,
Hey.
like, I know what he's doing. I don't want to be the jerk to say come to bed, but the same one's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm so low.
There's a lot of work that goes in these volumes, and right now we're in the middle of volume 4.
Yeah.
Volume 3's just kind of come in, it's available for sale. I mean, volume 3, really proud of, but I mean, right now we're all gearing towards volume 4.
Yes.
We are going to do a Kickstarter. The game plan is to try to raise $6,000 to get it in diamond, to get actual real distribution.
Right.
That I think is our biggest issue as a company is we thrive on the support of the few people who do buy our books.
Yep.
And most of the people who do buy our books are people who know us.
Yeah.
It's not like people are stumbling upon. There's a couple people who have stumbled upon and actually enjoyed it. I haven't heard one negative thing about the pulp.
Right. It's just a matter of getting it out there.
Yeah.
And the problem is, our main problem is advertising. You can't sell something that a lot of people don't know about.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
like we said, a few people kind of accidentally stumbled on it. It's like, oh, this is so cool. But, it's hard for advertising purposes, trying to get people to know about it and hear about it,
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. So we're just about ready to wrap up this hour. I will. We've done this a couple of times. We've ended by who is reading what?
Ah, yes.
Bonnie, what are you reading right now?
I am almost finished with a book called Bad Girls of the Bible and What We Can Learn from Them.
Oh,
Oh, nice.
I actually had that book.
Yes.
Really?
It's an interesting book. There's apparently a couple in this series by the lady. I'm going to be a guest speaker at a women's conference in September, so that's what they're speaking from. What I'm speaking from. So I'm
Can I
reading the
borrow it
book.
when you're done?
Oh, absolutely,
That sounds so cool.
absolutely. I have a
I
workbook
used
for
to
it,
have
too.
a copy, but I think I lent mine out and it didn't come back.
I hate when that happens.
It's interesting. I only have like one chapter left. Actually, I've been taking it with me to the. My sister's pregnant, going to the doctor's appointment, so I have to have something to do in the doctor's office. But yeah, so that's what I'm reading.
Nice.
Millie, what are you reading?
I'm kind of in the middle of 2 books. I am, but I'm not. The main one I'm reading is The Swan Thieves, which is written by the same author of The Historian, which was a book I absolutely loved. It was all about, The Historian was about, the true story of Vlad the Impaler, who became
nice.
Dracula, and but they added a lot of fantasy to it as well. Like they added, they talked a lot about the actual historical stuff that happened, but they tied in the whole, well, maybe he was Dracula kind of thing. It wasn't completely true. But it's the Swan Thieves is the same author who wrote that, and it's about, this time it's actually about an artist who kind of goes crazy in the middle of this gallery and tries to slash up this one painting. And all he will tell his therapist is, I did it for her. So this is therapist trying to figure out who she is and why this artist kind of went crazy. And all he's got is this envelope of letters to read and kind of thing. So I'm starting that one. And the reason why I say I'm kind of reading too is because I'm reading another book, but it's one I've read before. So it's not like I don't know what's going to happen. Which is one of my favorite books by Pearl Buck is The Good Earth.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which is honestly one of my favorite books ever. It's all about this poor farmer in China. It takes place a couple years before the Boxer Rebellion. And it's all about, him trying to get enough money to feed his family, because it starts off on his wedding day. He's going to go pick up his bride, who is this servant in this great wealthy family. And he goes and picks her up, and it talks about, him building his family, and eventually he becomes very wealthy, and to the point where he kind of forgets how hard he worked to get there. He starts to forget really what's important. Where he
came from, his roots.
He's starting to forget his poor roots, and he was never a gambling man, but he becomes kind of a gambler, and he gets his concubine, and stops appreciating his wife, who he really appreciated in the beginning. But now it's kind of oh, whatever. It's it's your job to be my wife and bear my sons and kind of thing, And so it's a really good
book for you to be reading.
Don't make me hurt you when people are listening. I'm just saying, if there's radio silence, you know why. You'll just hear this girl scream, go, ah! And it'll be Brandon. So yeah, but those are the two books I'm currently reading, and I definitely suggest at least The Good Earth, because I think it's one of my favorite books. So.
I'm reading. We picked these up on our honeymoon for the plane ride back. A series of Doctor Who novels. Reading one about the Cybermen. Maylene got one dealing with the Kennedy assassination.
Oh, I'm halfway through that. It's really good.
Yeah.
That one too.
But I'm reading that. Every once in a while, I'll pick up one of the Robert E. Howard shorts. I'm trying to work my way through a book of anthology of his that I got. And then comic book wise, DC just released it this week. If this goes up this week, it'll be last week for you listeners. But Batman 66. I'm really digging it. It's a whole new series. It's not a mini-series. It's actually a monthly title. Based off the Adam West, Burt Ward Batman TV series, the Bill Dozier Batman. They draw the Riddler just like Frank Gorshin. They draw Batman and they draw Batman just like Adam West. Burt Ward. It's a love letter to that series. And I'm reading it thinking this is exactly what that series should have been, because without the problem of a TV budget, you can have Batman doing a little bit more action scenes, and still have him being gosh golly, So I'm really loving it. I'm digging it. I'm glad there's a Batman title out there that's a little bit more kid friendly.
True. Yes.
So in that same vein, DC's actually launching another Batman kid-friendly title called Little Gotham.
Nice.
But because the Batman characters are most of them are so dark anyway, That
Sure.
you know, like Adam West is still the best way to introduce kids to Batman.
Yeah.
You know, so Wayne, what are you reading right now?
I have a lot of favorite authors, but one of my favorite authors is Mercedes Lackey. She's a very versatile writer. The Ship Who Sang, The Ship Who Searched are sci-fi books. She has fantasy books that take place in at least 3 different settings. The Elemental Masters series is set in Victorian England.
I love that one.
Her Valdemar series is set in mythical kingdom of Valdemar. That's, you know, your basically Middle Ages type setting. And then she has her Bardic Voices series that are also more of a medieval setting as well, but different than the Valdemar series. And then you have her Bedlam's Bard series, which is set in our modern world, but includes elves and the like in the modern world. And then you have her Serrated Edge series, where SERRA is all caps, and it's a racing corporation, and that whole series is based on elves and auto racing. Where to the elves, the auto racing competitions are the modern equivalent of jousting tournaments and stuff. And you know, you have them working on things because iron and steel are death metal to them. So when they first enter the racing circuit, they're using their elven steeds to emulate vehicles, and they have human crew people, so they'll have a car that can pass inspection, and then it's concealed while the elven steed takes over and does the racing, but they realize that's not a ploy they can get by with, so they start experimenting with cast aluminum engine parts and all these different ways to eliminate iron and steel from the structure of the car and come up with alloys that will still have it and do real racing with it. And
This is ingenious.
this is
It's fantastic.
it's the racing is the background, but there's other stuff that happens that they get drawn into that becomes the actual story, and it's fabulous books in it. But right now I was reading an short story anthology of hers called Weir Hunter is the name of it, and that's the name of the first story in the book. But it's a whole collection of just really fun, outstanding short stories by Mercedes Lackey. And she also has an occult detective series, Diana Tregarth or something like that, that is also a modern setting and kind of a dark detective adventure type thing. So the Mercedes Lackey Weir Hunter is what I've been currently reading, but I've read some of all of her series across the board that she's done, and I really enjoy them. Bedlam's Bard is my favorite. I just found, prior to starting Weir Hunter, I found the 3rd book in the Bedlam's Bard series that at the time I didn't know existed. I'd read the first 2 books and I didn't know she'd written a sequel. And so I enjoyed that very much too.
All right, well, we are at a little past the hour mark. Thank you for listening to us. This has been At the Table with Destiny Comics.
The following podcast was a production by Destiny Comics, sponsored by DestinyComics.wix.com/comics. Recorded live in Hemet, California. Produced by executive producer Michael Sanders. A special thanks to any and all guests who participated in the previous podcast. This concludes our broadcasting hour. Thank you.